This is where I can introduce you to some of the basic techniques that you'll be needing to learn in order to make your stamps. If you've received your bag of clay and tools from the back of the classroom, the stamps are going to be made with this much clay. You have 2 blocks of clay at about this size, enough for at least 2 stamps. Clay comes in big bags and is easily cut with a wire. So there's a wire in your toolkit as well. It's a small piece of wire, but it will do the job. I'm going to cut a small piece off of the block like this, similar to what you may have. The size and the shape of the stamp will vary according to your own tastes, but I'll show you how you can cut this into 2 simple pieces that can become the stamp and the pad. As you can see, there's plenty of clay in each of these small blocks to make at least 2 stamps. So I'm going to make this one the pad and this one the handle. There are many ways to make the handle, and one of the simplest forms is to approximate a tube or cylinder and then roll it out. Just like this. In practical terms, you really don't want anything thicker than a finger. The reason for that is, if it's too thick, it takes a very long time to dry, and the risk of inconsistent drying is higher. The chances of it exploding in the kiln, which is something I'll talk to you at great length about, is a little bit greater. Any kind of utility knife, a kitchen knife from your drawer in the kitchen is perfect, and you can decide how big you want this to be. This seems like a pretty reasonable thickness and a pretty reasonable length for a stamp. Set that aside, set these pieces over here, and this pad, it's a little bit large, but for demonstration purposes, I think it will be okay. I'll allow it to take whatever shape I pound it into. Gravity will let me shape it this way. And when I'm happy with the overall shape, I have a simple handle and a simple pad at this point. Each of you will have some clay slip. Clay slip is saturated clay, watered down clay, that is the exact same material that you're working with in a harder form, a more solid form. This stuff is about the consistency of a milkshake. I thought about putting a small brush in your kit for you, but I assume that maybe you have a model brush at home or a scratch brush or some kind of inexpensive brush that you can apply the slip with. If you don't, you can simply use your finger. In your tool bag, you have a couple of simple skewers, long or short, whichever one you're most comfortable with. This will be the tool that you'll expose the platelets with. This is called scoring, and you need to roughen up that surface in order to make a surface that is ready to be joined. This is approximately the size of this. Actually, I could make it a bit bigger. Okay? This is not precise work, it just is necessary work. So scratching this up like this. And then these pieces come together. So you could take whatever brush you have. This is an old paintbrush that I have, and I put a little bit of this just as if it were glue, because really that's what it is. A little bit of slip on both surfaces, the handle on top of the pad, and a little bit of pressure. The tricky part now is to blend them down. And I didn't put a lot of special tools in your bag this way, but any kind of popsicle stick, a narrow finger, anything that you can use to blend these surfaces together are helpful. Okay, so we're pushing in at the base, dragging a bit of clay across the seam, and you have something that's kind of rough looking like that, but you can also make it more precise by pushing down and turning. If you want to, you can take a little bit of leftover clay, make a really thin snake like this to put around the base. You can score around the base again, and it can be a rough job because you haven't refined any of this yet. Just like this. Score the edges of the clay along one side of the coil that you've just created. Put a little bit of slip on there as well, across here. And then wrap this around the base. If you'd like to, blend it in with your thumb or your finger as you go around. You'll refine this to make it something that will last and something that's also attractive. Remember, practical and useful objects are still well designed and enjoyed for their attractiveness. So even though this stamp has a purpose, we're going to make sure that it is appealing to the eye as well. When the pieces are joined, you should be able to suspend the pad with the handle. If it falls apart now, it will definitely fall apart later because clay shrinks as it dries. So make sure you have a strong bond and then begin to develop the negative relief or the positive relief. Two stamps, one should be dominant positive relief, the other should be dominant negative relief. Remember, if you're going to put any letters or numbers on your stamp, they have to be the mirror image, because as you push your stamp into clay, you're going to get the reverse image that's on the stamp. As I begin to develop the surface, I realize that any clay that I attach as positive relief should be scored and slipped as well. Small beads like this could just fall off if they're not joined well. Positive relief here, negative relief can be scratched in this way. Remember, you have many surfaces to work with. You can use the sides as stamped surfaces, and you can use the top as a stamped surface as well. How many stamped surfaces can you find on yours? Now you have some important considerations at the end of your work session. This one is coming along nicely, but the bell has rung. I have to go. So if I have to go from session to session, I want to ensure that my work stays damp and workable. To that end, a little bit of water in a dish can be very helpful. Take some paper towels. Paper towels in the classroom work well, or the paper towels at home, of course, if you're at home, is what you're going to need. Take the paper towels and wrap the stamp up so that the clay will absorb the water from the paper towel. Clay can be kept damp forever this way. I have a couple of projects that I've kept wrapped for years now. So there's my stamp in damp paper towels. If I want the remaining part of the clay to also stay damp, I have to do the same thing. Okay, we have some damp paper towels here, and I can wrap the remainder of the clay in the damp paper towels, treating it the same way as I do my stamp, my small sculpture, my tile, whatever it is I'm making. When I have the clay wrapped up, I know that it's not going to dry out between sessions. However, I do have to trap that moisture inside. So you do have some saran wrap, some cling wrap in your bag. You can wrap those projects that you want to keep moist in paper towel and then cling wrap. The cling wrap will keep all of that moisture inside. The same goes for the remaining clay here. Wrap this up as well. The bag that you have, the large baggie that all of your clay and your tools came in, can be an airtight environment for the clay that you want to keep moist. So I encourage you to use that plastic bag again and again and again. Seal it up and ensure that your work will be there for you soft, pliable, and ready to go the next time. Okay, these stamps are really attractive and useful, and I think you're really going to enjoy making them. That's it for today. Enjoy making stamps.